Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Bannon or Airspeed Prime here. I'm the site super moderator for Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com, and I'm here today to present to you the my comic commentary of Avatar The Last Airbender The Promise Part 1 from Dark Horse Comics. As you may have seen from my written review on Avatar The Last Airbender Online, and also the video review I put up here, I had mentioned that I was going to possibly be doing this, and people seem to like the idea, so I'm going to go ahead with it. How this is going to work is basically the best way to do is to have the book out with you while you listen to this, and basically I'll be kind of like reading through it, giving analysis at points, and saying what points I really like and so on, and then you can follow along with it. It being a book, it makes it so much easier for me to just like flick back and refer to different parts without it getting too confusing, as in as in the episode commentaries where like you have to stop and then it will make things out of sync. So hopefully this video does not go on too long. It's like 71 pages of the story, and yeah, so hopefully it won't go on for more than about half an hour at most. So okay, let's just get straight into it. So we start on page 1, which is obviously the page that says water, earth, fire, air. Now clearly the opening of this book is a reference to the opening of the show, probably more specifically to the opening of the first episode with Katara's extended narration here. And we find out only later that it's Katara talking as we go through page what is page 6 in the book, but page 2 of the actual story. We have basically the same thing, the same intro. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked, and then we get to the part where Katara's like, "I believe Aang would save the world," and then we get the new stuff. And you know what? I was right. And we get right there that this is Katara speaking from the future. We assume that it's probably from the year later that most of this comic is based on, but it could be even like her talking about this like from like Korra times. Maybe she is telling this story to Korra, since we get the in opening narration like that. So anyway, we start off with the kind of catching up where the 321 ended. Like kind of this is just before the kiss, leading to just after the kiss, and then we switch to a year later. So at the bottom of page 8 we have here we have this shot of the map, which is actually a really important shot to do with Korra, and like it is the first panel. We see the Fire Nation on the map, we see the Earth Kingdom on the map, and then we see the location of the Fire Nation colonies. They are the sections of the Earth Kingdom that are closest to the Fire Nation. So these, we can tell straight away that these are the oldest Fire Nation colonies, and we know that the war started like 100 years ago. Like even and there was even attacks before then when Roku was still alive. So we know that at least some of these colonies have probably been there for over 100 years, and that is at least 2 or 3 probably generations, maybe 2-3 generations of people there. And we get straight from Aang that he never knew that there was this many Fire Nation colonies, despite his travels around the world trying to end the war. And then Kuei back obviously from his journey around the world. He's obviously knows how to be a king now and knows more about the world. And I might as well read this part. For the Earth people, they're a constant reminder of the war, like an old scar. And we see that it is sort of like a scar across the coast of the Earth Kingdom, the kind of Fire Nation colonies all the way down. And obviously that area is where Republic City is. If you United Republic, if you saw the opening of Korra, that is where United Republic is, and the little island there, I think, is what Air Temple Island is going to be. And then Kuei realizes that he said Scar, and Zuko's in the room, and he kind of apologizes there to Zuko for it. But Zuko, he's not angry anymore. He's now the Fire Lord. He's right, and he agrees with Aang and Kuwei that they have to remove the Earth Kingdom colonies to kind of begin the healing process of the world. And obviously he's not thinking right now about the fact that those colonies have been there for 100 years, which is a big thing, which you will realize when he goes to Udale later in this book. So he's completely on the side of the Avatar, and they're kind of almost oblivious to the fact that right now that those people who are in these colonies are as such innocent people in the Fire Nation. And then Aang actually mentions it right here, but removing the colonies won't be easy, as a lot of people's lives are going to be disrupted. They're going to have to make sure it goes down peacefully. Someone like me, and Aang agrees that he's going to help the kind of peaceful transfer of the Fire Nation people back to the Fire Nation. He just doesn't quite realize how kind of used to the colonies and living there that the people are. And Katara agrees to help, and we get a little reference there from Sokka. He wants to go to Kyoshi Island, but he's willing to help too. And then they name this movement of restoring harmony to the world the Harmony Restoration Movement. And we get a little reference from Toph there that your goofy names for everything. And then Sokka says the gift, which is like perfectly in character. Right now everything's great in the book, it's great. And then here again, continuing the narration, Earth King Kuei planned a celebration where he would announce the Harmony Restoration Movement. Then this is where they go to the Jasmine Dragon and why they are there. And we get where 321 pretty much ends before they walk out on the balcony. Well, I think you all look perfect from Toph, which is like the final words spoken in the series. And then we get probably one of my favorite lines in the book. They're out on the balcony. There, Aang and I, ... we figured out what we meant to each other. And then we see obviously their kind of first kind of big proper kiss together. And then we see Sokka walk out. Obviously kind of we see that he's sort of been oblivious to it the whole time. They kind of their developing relationship, and he's like shocked by this. And this is obviously where the kind of Oogies things come from, and you can sort of understand it from Sokka's point of view because of because like his father tasks him with protecting his sister. And obviously like he doesn't really need to protect her from Aang, but same sort of thing. And obviously they're kind of like embarrassed about this when he comes out. And then Sokka brings up the whole Oogies things for the first time here. It's your sisterly duty to avoid giving me the Oogies. And then like Katara immediately is like appalled at how he can like say this about them when him and Suki are kind of just as bad. Like if you saw 316, like the 10th scene, what were they waiting to do? And they have like argument, and Aang's just in the background like, Sokka. And then he asks like why did Sokka come out? And they want to go out for a ride on Appa before the celebration starts. You have this great panel of like them on Appa having a great time, and they kind of like dive bomb down. Then fireworks starting, and everyone in the Earth Kingdom seems happy about the war being over. Yeah, Toph obviously can't see the fireworks, and it's like, hey Sokka, do you know why fireworks are like for me? Close your eyes. And then she just screams boom in his ear, and he instantly realizes what the problem is. And here's where the title of the book comes from. Zuko is not really having the best of times here on this ride, celebrating. And then he mentions the visit that he gave to his father in prison, and he has to ask a favor of Aang. And I'm just going to read this out because it is like a very important scene. If you ever see me turning into my father, I want you to ... I want you to end me. And Aang immediately kind of like gets a bit serious, like, he's like, what? And Zuko continues on, even now, after everything that's happened, my family's legacy is still part of me. That's why it's my duty to heal the scars that the Fire Nation has left on the world. But the Fire Lord's throne comes with a lot of pressures, and if I'm honest with myself, I need a safety net. The world needs a safety net. That's what I need you to be, Aang, the safety net. And Aang doesn't want to do this because Zuko is his friend now. But he has to because we can see the intensity in Zuko. He is smart enough to realize that he has not made the best of decisions in the past and is making this safety net here, something he didn't do in, say, Bossing Say and some of the other decisions he made. So this, as Roku mentions, like later, this is kind of Zuko's biggest moment of clarity in the whole one, in this kind of pretty much the whole book. And Aang's just like, Zuko, you're not your dad, you're my friend. How can you expect me to do this? And then this is where Zuko says, "Promise me, Aang." Aang then looks to Katara, and you know she has a kind of harsh stare on her face, and it's Katara basically saying to Aang, agree to it. Katara probably thinking about what happened in Bossing Say here, and Aang's like, fine, I promise. And then we move on to 1 year later. So now they have the task of reintroducing us to the characters a year later, what's happening and so on. So we go straight back into the story in the Royal Palace, the Fire Nation capital. And Zuko wakes up, kind of obviously hearing something, and feels that there's a assassination attempt coming. And now the reason he knows this is because there's been a few five attempts on his life already. And he gets up, his guards are not good at all. They don't realize anything, but Zuko does, and someone comes in attacking him. We see it's a girl. She's got a kind of ball on a chain. I really don't know what the name on that weapon is. And she says to him, down with the traitor, down with the Fire Lord who betrays his own people. Now, as we later find out, this is Corey, the mayor's daughter from Yudao, the oldest Fire Nation colony, which has not yet been kind of relocated back to the Fire Nation. And why she calls him a traitor, as we'll find out later as well, is because of him being completely on the side of Aang in the Harmony Restoration movement, Aang and Kuei, not thinking about his own people and them kind of having a new life in the colonies, because they as such are not kind of the bad part of the war, them being kept there, but stuff has to be done. And obviously he's being attacked. He defends himself with firebending, but she is a good kind of bit of an acrobat there, dodging his fire attacks, and eventually he kind of unmasks her and is like, convince me not to take your life. And here she reveals she's the mayor's daughter, and why she came here to like kill him basically is because she's like, that's my home. You and the Avatar are going to destroy it with the Harmony Restoration movement. And then we go to the city of Yudao. Zuko has obviously come here to tell, who we find out now is Mayor Morishita, who is the mayor of Yudao, a Fire Nation citizen. And we found out the girl's name is Corey here. Zuko brings Corey back and basically tells her father that she tried to kill him. And Zuko makes this big entrance here, and it's just amazing art. You can see Guruhu's amazing art here with the two Fire Nation soldiers in the background, and Zuko just looking like absolute like Darth Vader just walking in there. Big entrance. And like her father didn't know about this, so this is just her, all her, just talking about this now. And he gets down on his knees and apologizes for her behavior. And Zuko is we see the kind of intensity of Zuko here. Explain to me why I shouldn't burn down this place right now. And then Corey argues that like the Harmony Restoration movement will do the same thing. And Zuko's just like, this is just a means to peace. And here's where the mayor speaks up on this topic. And he says like the hard work that the Fire Nation people and the Earth Kingdom people went into to making Yu Dao as it is one of the richest cities in the world. And Zuko's just like, you're Fire Nation citizens, you should live in the Fire Nation. Kind of that Avatar mentality that Roku had, that the Four Nations should remain for. And here's where the mayor brings up the point that kind of changes Zuko's mind on this thing. Your father would never have let the Avatar and the Earth King bully him into something so obviously bad for his own nation's citizens. And then this is where Zuko has a flashback to his meeting with his father that we see in the finale. And obviously we get the thing, where is my mother? And Ozai does not answer him here. We're on page 26, just for anyone keeping track. You ought to bring me some tea, Zuko. And then Ozai brings up the point here that how do you think you're going to be the Fire Lord? I can give you advice. And then if I give you advice, perhaps the subject of your mother will come up. Zuko leaves. And then again, Ozai brings up, do you think being Fire Lord is easy? A lot of pressures. And then, do you believe you can handle it on your own? And then, just as the door's about to be shut, he says, you'll be back and I'll be here waiting for you, son. And the door closes. So that is what made Zuko ask Aang for that promise. And then Zuko blows up over this, the mayor mentioning his father. I'm not my father. Firebend and then has the mayor up against the door. And he calls him a coward and a traitor. And then this is what changes Zuko's mind completely. And we see here kind of how unreasonable some of the people of the colonies are, and the kind of how much the kind of war and Ozai's mentality kind of has changed them. In that they're still kind of that in that mentality that this is a Fire Nation town, we did this. Yet it's kind of unwilling to go back to the Fire Nation because they made a good life there. So this is kind of where the whole kind of conflict is kind of coming into it here, where they can't, if they just leave them as they are, that's justifying part of the war as being good. That it's okay for the Fire Nation to occupy these Earth Kingdom places just because it's now a nice city. But on the other hand, they can't just relocate all these people who have lived there for so long. And as we'll see later, we'll get the hints of United Republic. And here they're on a Fire Nation, Sokka and Katara. They're relocating people back to the Fire Nation. And Aang is entertaining people, trying to be really fun and like make it peaceful. And then they arrive at the Fire Nation, and then someone says stop unloading all these all the people's goods. And the kind of main guard says like return to the Earth Kingdom by order of the Fire Lord. And here's where Aang finds out that as the guard says, Fire Lord Zuko has officially withdrawn his support of the Harmony Restoration movement, and everyone is shocked by this. And here's where the scene switches on page 32 to the Beifong Metal Bending Academy in the Earth Kingdom, which is fairly close to Yu Dao, as we will kind of find out in a second. And she senses kind of seismic sense that there's a crowd at the city gates below. And here's where we see kind of three of her kind of first metal bending students here. And you know, and we see that they are not the best of students, really. They also want to know what's happening. They think that they're being doomed. One guy hates Doom. And again, we see Toph's teaching style, like she was in Bitter Work, is kind of very kind of aggressive, and they're all kind of scared of her. And something's happening in Yu Dao, I can hear it. And then she hears Appa's roar as Sokka, Aang, and Katara are heading to Yudao to confront Zuko over his change of mind. And then Toph runs off to meet them, and we get on what is page 34, one of the most awesome most awesome pages in the whole book. Toph on a piece of earth spots Appa, sends an earth pillar flying out of the ground, propelling herself into the sky, and she lands with a whump on the back of Appa, no one knowing that she was going to be there, scaring the living daylights out of everyone. And she's like, "Hey guys," and then everyone's glad to see her again. And then they have the great reunion. And we see that they haven't seen her in a while because she's been at her metal bending school. So it is a big reunion. And Katara says that she's glad that she's there because Aang needs his support. And we see that Aang is on the front of Appa, meditating, communing with Avatar Roku for advice on this. And here's where Toph gets filled in on the situation. Aang's meditating on what he might have to do, Katara says, because of the promise he made. The world is still not at peace yet, which is kind of the premise of this whole book, that this whole thing with the colonies has to be sorted out before peace can return to the world. And then Aang and Roku kind of talk about if Zuko, kind of as he's heard now, he's changed his mind, if it's really bad, if he's becoming like Ozai, how is he supposed to kill his friend and firebending teacher? And then Roku's like, "You be a person who keeps your promises." And here's where Roku mentions Zuko was in his clearest moment when he asked for the promise. He knew what was at stake. And then all the lives that have been lost in the war, Roku again regretting his kind of mistake of sparing his friend when he did something wrong, Sozin. Aang cannot make that mistake again. And then Aang decides he's going to go to Yudao and talk to Zuko, see why he's like this. And as they land outside Yudao, kind of the Earth Kingdom place, there's a big protest here led by Smellerbee, Longshot, and Sneers. And a great note on this kind of panel that where kind of Smellerbee is on Longshot's shoulders, leading the protest, Fire Nation out. The speech bubbles lead to pretty much everyone except Longshot, which is just a great little thing. And then on the next panel we get Sokka calls Smellerbee a he, and then Katara corrects him. She's actually a girl. Reference to Iroh's mistake in season 2, and they're all happy to see the Avatar. And Smellerbee asks, "What's the plan of attack? The freedom fighters are at your service." But Aang reveals that he just wants to talk to Zuko. And we see that Smellerbee's and the kind of crowd wants the Fire Nation out of the Earth Kingdom to bring peace back to the world. Kind of what Aang's point was at the start, just slightly kind of more aggressive. Fire Nation troops are guarding everywhere in Yudao and the Fire Nation colonies. And here we get Sneers kind of speaking pretty much for the first time. And we've had it from Gene Yang himself that he wants to make Sneers kind of more of a character in these books. And here we get Aang knows the best way in, and he's like, "You ready, sweetie?" "I'm ready, sweetie," to Katara. And together on the glider they go over the wall. And then it's completely just lampshaded here by the fact that Toph is just like, "Seriously, sweetie?" And then Sokka's just straight-faced, "I know, right? So, oogie." And obviously they land inside, and Aang, really peaceful, is just like, "Flameo, hot man." And the lead guard, we see again that these kind of are the guards left over from Ozai, very aggressive, "We're not talking, we'd rather fight than talk." And Aang just wants to talk. He kind of puts his hands together, closes his eyes, and kind of bows, "I just want to talk to Zuko, that's all." And he's like, the guard immediately attacks Aang. Aang obviously defends himself. He doesn't like fight back really, he just kind of subdues the guard. And then everyone starts attacking Aang. He's dodging everyone. All the fire, trying not to hurt them. And then Katara sees that Aang, some of his clothes have been set a little bit on fire. And kind of Katara freaks out, and he's just like, and she gets really angry. And we have a great over page 50 and 51. We have how many panels is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 panels, and it's just one word per thing. Stop trying to set my boyfriend on fire, as she like just annihilates all the Fire Nation troops with like water and ice and stuff like that. And Katara and Aang is just like, whoa, nice. And again, then the final guy attacks Aang, and Katara sends some icicles towards him, and they kind of fall to the ground as Zuko grabs her hand from behind. And Katara says like that Zuko is hurting her, and Zuko's like, I'm hurting you? What are you doing to my soldiers, my people? And Aang sees this and is like, let go of her, Zuko. She said you're hurting her. And then Zuko's like, first she has to agree to stop attacking my people. And here's where the thing with Zuko not in the most clearest of mind here, kind of his mind has been changed, influenced by the mayor of Yudao, the whole thing about Ozai weighing on his mind, the fact that Iroh is not kind of present right now. We'll kind of see him in later parts. It was confirmed. All this coming to a head here, where he's not thinking about this. It's completely Zuko and his guards that are in the wrong, because they did attack Aang and Katara when they just wanted to talk. They just defended themselves. And Aang rightly says that to him. Your soldiers attacked first. Let her go now. And then Zuko's like, I'm the Fire Lord. I have the right to protect citizens of the Fire Nation. Seeing that Zuko is not willing to talk, Aang kind of does a big airbending blast, sending Zuko kind of flying and away from Katara. Zuko fires some fire back, and then Aang blocks it with some water bending. And Aang sort of overreacts in this situation, but you can kind of understand with Zuko seemingly doing another complete 180 right now. I came here to talk to you, Zuko, as a friend, but you've changed. You've forgotten what we fought for. And then as the Avatar state begins to activate, maybe not the kind of mastered Avatar state, just a defense mechanism. He's getting kind of angry about this, so his arrow and eyes start to glow. Maybe Avatar Roku was right. Maybe a promise is a promise. And Zuko sees what's happening and is like scared for his life as the kind of air bubble surrounds Aang. Like again, Katara. This is a great reference to the few times in the show where Katara gets Aang out of the Avatar state, like the Southern Air Temple, the desert, and so on. Aang, stop. If you enter the Avatar state in such an emotional way, you won't be able to control yourself. You have to calm down. Please, sweetie, for me. As she kind of looks him in the eye and like kind of grabs his face, and she pulls him down into a hug. And we see there from the kind of height difference in the final panel on in page 58 how much Aang has kind of grown in this year. And we can see he's a lot kind of taller now, where he's taller than Toph now, where they kind of were the same size before. And then Aang kind of apologizes straight away. I can't believe it. I might have done something terrible without thinking of Zuko. And here Zuko kind of realizes what he was doing wrong. And I'm so glad, because this panel and the kind of the next scene was not shown in the leaked preview that was like 40 pages. Zuko realizes what the problem was. Katara's right. We both need to calm down and talk. Aang rightfully kind of, are you kidding me? That's what I want to do in the first place, and just roars at Zuko, and Zuko's kind of like, oh, yeah, you're right, sorry. And Zuko gives them a tour, leads them on a tour of Yudao, and tells them about how old this place is. It's over 100 years old. It was just a tiny village. Now it's one of the kind of richest cities in the world. And we see that Fire Nation people and Earth Kingdom people live here together. And it makes the finest metalwork done here in the world. Which is probably why, part of the reason why Toph made her metal bending school so close to here. But as Katara points out, the Fire Nation citizens and the Earth Kingdom citizens are not sharing equally in that wealth. It is clearly the Fire Nation citizens who are kind of the higher class, and the Earth Kingdom people who are kind of more the kind of servants doing the kind of tough jobs. But Zuko mentions that the people of the Earth Kingdom are better off now than they were 100 years ago. And Aang points out to Zuko here what the issue is with Zuko doing a 180 on his decision about the Harmony Restoration movement. By betraying the movement, you're going to start another war, especially now that they've seen the kind of angry protesters who are for the Restoration movement. And then Zuko says, like, I felt that way too before I came here. And I was going to personally remove the people from Yudao, but then he was called a traitor. You know, the thing about Ozai, and then just as he's about to, Zuko commands the guards to seize him. This is kind of like a flashback to the scene we saw before. We see that a woman earthbends and stops this, and she says, "Fire Lord, please forgive my husband's foolishness. I've told him time and time again to control his tongue, but he never does." And Zuko's shocked to find that Mayor Morishita has his wife is actually an earthbender, and their daughter Corey reveals that she is an earthbender, but she considers herself a Fire Nation citizen. She considers the people of the Fire Nation to be her people, not the Earth Kingdom, which is a huge thing for Avatar as a whole, but also for the characters to see here. That the highest, like, ranking, I suppose, is not probably the best word, but member in Yudao is, in fact, married to who would have been kind of like just a regular earthbender woman. He's married to her, so the kind of some of the class thing that was mentioned before is not so much. The two nations together are kind of thriving together, and sorry, I just lost my train of thought there for a second. And like how important this is leading into Korra, when we know that Mako and Bolin are a firebender and earthbender respectively, and that means that one of their parents has to be an earthbender, one of their parents has to be a firebender, which sort of are they related in some way to Corey, Mayor Morishita, perhaps, maybe, since it was kind of set up here. And then here, his wife says, "Would your majesty be willing to stay in Yudao for a few days? It would be an honor for us to show the Fire Lord our way of life." And Zuko kind of agrees to this, and has learned why the people are so eager to keep their home the way it is. And what he saw there changed his mind, as he said. We're on page 64 now. He'd forgotten about his people. But and then Zuko says to Aang, "I know you defeated the Fire Nation, Aang, but my people still deserve respect." And Aang says, "I defeated the Fire Nation. You mean we defeated the Fire Lord?" Which is completely correct, in that Aang was never against the Fire Nation. He is for the four nations being kind of in harmony together. He took down Ozai because it was mainly Ozai and his kind of military government and like his officials that made the war kind of bad. And then here's where kind of Zuko and Aang have another disagreement. It's disrespectful to take from them a life they spent generations building. I won't let you do it. And then Aang says, harmony requires 4 separate nations to balance each other out. It can't have balance if one nation occupies each other. Both are wrong and correct at the same time. And then immediately after that, the panel, there's no words on it. Aang walking away angry from this kind of conflict, out of Yudao, away from Mayor Morshita's family, and Katara, kind of concerned, looks at that family, the 2 nations coming together. Their daughter is a Earthbender who considers herself a Fire Nation citizen. 2 nations kind of in harmony there. And she brings up to Aang, maybe Yudao can be an exception. And it's just a thought. So those 2 little panels on page 65 are so crucial. Sorry, are so crucial to the whole story, the story as a whole, including part 2 and 3. Even though we don't see them, we haven't seen them yet, but we can tell that it's going to be Katara's idea, put in place in Yudao, and her convincing Aang and Zuko to agree to it, that ultimately leads to the formation of United Republic. So while Mike and Brian came out and said that it was Aang and Zuko who founded United Republic, the kind of idea of it probably comes from Katara, and like that gives you a lot of more respect for her when you see her in the leaked Korra stuff of late. And then Zuko says, exceptions should be made for all the remaining colonies. Most of them have been around for well over a century. They're older than you, Aang. And Aang kind of rightly says, you've got to be joking, that would make peace impossible. Which is correct. At this stage, the Fire Nation has so many colonies, as we saw on like the 2nd page of this book. That much Earth Kingdom land being occupied by the Fire Nation is just wrong. While just this one city that is kind of the richest city that can like sustain itself would be the best way to do it, which means that Katara's idea is correct but not kind of expanded upon here yet. And then Katara is the kind of neutral in this kind of argument. King Kuwei needs to be part of whatever happens next. If Aang and I can arrange a meeting, will you be there, Zuko? I'll be there. And then Aang's like, talking's good, I guess. So there we have it, that in part 2 or 3, we don't really know yet, there's going to be a sit down between Zuko, King Kuwei, Aang, and I assume Katara will be there, where they will discuss what to do. And then at the outside we see Sokka and Toph dealing with the protesters as they get more rowdy and rowdy. Why is the Avatar taking so long? They say the Fire Lord probably captured him. We have to go in and save the Avatar from those Ash Makers. And that little line, Ash Makers, is it shows how the other nations feel about the Fire Nation as a whole. When they don't realize that it was just Ozai, it wasn't just the whole Fire Nation that was guilty of this war. It was pretty much just Ozai and his military government. And then calling all the people Ash Makers shows the kind of disrespect. Sokka tries to calm them down and just gets a stone to the face after being called a Water Tribe savage. Toph takes offense to this and decides enough is enough. Sets a huge earth pillar up with her on top of it and roars at the top of her lungs in a really nice panel on page 66. Don't you dunderheads know who I am? I'm Toph Beifong, the greatest earthbender of all time. When my friend tells you to calm down, you calm down. And they all stop as she threatens to drop a boulder on them. The next person to throw anything or say anything gets a boulder straight in the noggin, got it? And they count down and you have that classic Toph grin. That's more like it. And then Sokka gets in on this. Good thing you listened to her, folks. I was about to bust out Mr. Boomerang. Whack-a-pow. And we see that Boomerang is back, but not explained. And then one sarcastic Earth Kingdom guy's like, ooh, Mr. Boomerang, so scary. And then the next panel is just him flat on his face after being annihilated by the boomerang. And Katara then enter again, and they're all like, "What happened? What happened?" And it's Smellerbee is kind of developing into a main character in this plot, as we see here. Do what? Wait. Sokka's like, "So what happened?" And then Toph's like, "Did you have to ... do it?" Smellerbee's like, "Do what? You killed the Fire Lord?" And this is where she's coming into a main character. She is the one really inclined to start a war, in a way. And I'm like, no. So Smellerbee asks, "Well, what's going on? What are we going to do?" And they tell her about the meeting with the Earth King to propose a solution to all this. And this is a huge thing for setting up part 2, what Smellerbee says at the bottom of page 68. The Earth Kingdom has waited for over 1,000 years to be rid of those Ash Makers. We'll give you 3 days, Avatar Aang. After that, the freedom fighters will figure out a solution on their own. And what that's going to be is just a forceful removal of the Fire Nation people from those colonies, which is just going to lead to another war. And then Toph has a really simple view on this. Zuko knows he's wrong, doesn't he? The Fire Nation colonies have got to go. Katara is the neutral here. It's complicated, Toph. There are a lot of issues involved. And then Aang's just like, talking's good, always good, right? And this is a thread throughout this whole book of Aang and talking. Like, is it going to solve anything here? And so on. And then Katara and Aang have a nice Katang scene here, where he says like, I'm so happy that you didn't let me get angry and do something I'd regret. And Katara says that if you ever have to fulfill your promise, I can't let it happen like that. You have to be calm enough to know the right decision. And then as they hug, Sokka does the Oogies thing again. And then Katara says, "What is an Oogie? What does that even mean?" And then Toph's just like, "I can explain, give me your hand," and she licks it. That's Oogies. And then we get to the final few pages in the book. Fire Nation Palace. So the Fire Lord has returned. May enters the book for the first time. The mob outside Yudao is gone, and here May reveals to the how concerned she is with how Zuko has been. He never told her that he was leaving for Yudao, and she had to learn from like the official edicts that the soldiers posted around the Fire Nation capital. And he won't talk to her, and she confronts him about this. "You're doing it again. If you're having problems, you're supposed to talk to me. I'm your girlfriend." And Zuko says, "I'm sorry, it won't happen again." And we get that Zuko's been having trouble sleeping. So along with all this stuff about him struggling being the Fire Lord, the thing about his mother playing on his mind, Iroh not being there, and so on, he's been having trouble sleeping as well. So that just is not great. And then Zuko's like, "How did you know? Have you looked in the mirror lately?" And May has seen how bad his guards are and has got in some real security. The Kyoshi warriors. And as we see here, they are Suki and Suki and Ty Lee are kind of like the leaders now. And there's three more of them. And that's just a fantastic reference. Best guards in the world. And Zuko thinks he's going to be assassinated again. And Suki and Ty Lee reveal that nothing's been going on in a while. And Zuko says he's going to get some water, and they ask, "Do you want us to escort you for safety?" And Zuko says no. But where does he go? He goes to the Fire Nation prison. He has tea, as Ozai asked for in the flashback. Sets it down in front of the bars to Ozai's prison cell. Ozai takes it as Zuko kind of kneels down in front of his father. ... I need your advice ... father. Kind of referencing the last thing Ozai said to him in the flashback. He's like dot 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 son, and then Ozai has a evil grin on his face. The tea is he can see the heat coming off the tea. To be continued, and that's the end of the book. And it's a fantastic introduction to the promised story. It takes place what it deals with is exactly what you would assume would happen at the end of the series. The end of the series is not peace in the world, everything's fine. There are the Fire Nation colonies to deal with. Will Zuko be a good Fire Lord? Aang is still a young Avatar, and so on. And all these things are kind of set up for part 2. The conflict in the the conflict about the Harmony Restoration movement obviously is the kind of main plot. Then we have stuff like Smellerbee giving them 3 days before she and the Freedom Fighters are gonna do something about this. Well, the Fire Nation basically disagreeing with this. Then we know from solicits that part 2 is also going to a lot of focus was going to be on Toph's metal bending school having a conflict with a fire bending school nearby, and Sokka and Toph training the metal bending school to be good, basically. And also the formation of United Republic is going to come up, and just a few other little things that we have found out in relation to part 2. Iroh and his relationship with Zuko will come up in future parts, so that's great. We'll see more. We'll see some Iroh, and Zuko being related to Roku. Mainly Roku finding this out will also come up in a future part. We will see more of Suki, especially in part 3. And then regarding Ursa, this is straight from Mike and Brian to Gene Yang to us. What Ursa's absence means is more important than what actually happened. That's from Mike and Brian. This along with an... okay, I'm just reading this off a news post I put up. So that tells us a lot, and that suggests that we'll find out what happened to Ursa in something else, because they've mentioned that we will need to find out about it soon. Sneers obviously is kind of probably become more of a character as this freedom fighter thing becomes a bigger plot point. Azula does make an appearance in these comics, and Azula is in the asylum, that is confirmed. And then we're just regarding how this ends with Zuko giving in to all his stress, all these problems, these issues. He needs advice on how to be the Fire Lord, how to, and he's looking for stuff about his mother here too. And Gene Yang said in an interview, Zuko fears more what Ozai won't tell him rather than what he will tell him. So Zuko is fearing not finding out about his mother, kind of rather than what Ozai will ask for in return for this advice. And then just a little thing on the kind of Aang and why he is wrong in the kind of old method of being the Avatar in that way. The 4 nations must remain 4 very separate things, which, while is balance, is not a great way to do equality between the nations, where you're basically saying that Aang's that mentality basically means that his relationship with Katara won't work because they're both from 2 different nations. They're not remaining 4 nations. The same goes for Suki and Sokka, and so on. So part of how Aang gets into the idea of United Republic will be with him seeing the world through a more modern lens, in that what the war has done to the world is it has brought the kind of nations kind of more together, as we see in the Fire Nation colonies, and also with some of the relationships that have developed in the gang and so on. So with him seeing it through a more modern lens is learning that, yes, for the most part keep the nations 4 and separate, but Katara's idea of making Yu Dao the exception make that a place where the nations can come together. All the best parts of every nation, kind of, to make one big city in the middle of the Avatar world. And that is all I really want to say. My throat is getting a bit sore from talking so much, so this has gone on probably a bit longer than I expected, but I think most of it has been fairly interesting. Maybe I read the book too much. Maybe I'm still not really that used to doing these comic commentaries. I think I did some good analysis on parts of it. Again, it'll be more interesting to talk about this more. Talk about this more when part 2 comes out, when the whole all 3 parts have come out. So I commend you if you managed to listen through the kind of all 50 minutes of this comic commentary, and thank you for watching. Great, thank you. Bye.